This is a Pele Media podcast.
Welcome back to Goonies Minute, everybody. Goonies Minute is the fan podcast where we carefully explore the movie Goonies minute by minute. This is Brady.
And this is Chris.
And we are here to go over minute number 102 of the Goonies today with special guest Mark Landry. Mark, thank you so much for coming on again. We're excited to talk about your history as a screenwriter and also a comic book author and your experience with the Goonies. So, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. It's another
Awesome.
Great day to be Goonie.
That's very true. So like I was saying, you were also, aside from being a screenwriter, you're also a comic book author. And you had a comic that was published, I think, like 2 years ago? Or was it last year?
They started it in September of 2015, and it was 5 issues monthly. And then in the summer of last year, it was collected into a graphic novel.
That's awesome. And it's called Bloodthirsty: One Nation Underwater. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, it's a sort of gritty, it would be R-rated if it were a movie, but gritty story about a former Coast Guard rescue swimmer who lost his family during Hurricane Katrina. And it's in New Orleans, obviously, and 10 years later, he discovers this conspiracy by these corrupt business people who happen to be vampires to basically they are feeding off the blood of the poor and homeless in New Orleans, and there's another hurricane coming toward the shore. So he's got to basically stop these vampires from corralling all these people into the Superdome before the hurricane hits, because that's where they're going to harvest the blood.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And
spoiler alerts.
Yeah, we were talking about it whenever you were a guest on Ghostbusters Minute, and then I think Kyle and I went out to Barnes & Noble to get some coffee, and sure enough, right there in the comics section was Bloodthirsty.
Awesome.
I was like, oh, I know this guy, I know this dude.
Awesome. See, I love that. My experience is I go down to my local Barnes & Noble, and I'm like, do you have Bloodthirsty? And they're like, no. And
oh, God, like, really?
Okay, are you going to get it? And they're like, no, we can order it for you. What's your name? And I'm like, never mind.
No,
it's fun. There is one Barnes & Noble. The biggest one actually does have it. The biggest one here in LA. The one that's just close to me doesn't have it, so it's not,
I gotcha.
Not too bad.
Well, they need to get on it. For
right.
real. With that said, do y'all want to go ahead and get into minute 102?
Yes,
Let's
sir.
do it.
All right. In the previous minute, the Goonies had escaped the cave and were spotted on the beach. All of their families had been rushed in and reunited with them. Sloth and the Fratellis had been seemingly trapped in the cave, never to be seen again. The Inferno, however, has become unanchored from its locked position. A massive opening in the cave wall has now given the ship a new possibility. At 102 minutes, the parents of all of the Goonies continue to embrace their children. We are introduced to Chunk's family. They are welcoming him home with his favorite thing, a large pepperoni pizza. Mouth, Steph, Andy, Mikey, and Brand are also sharing stories of their adventure with their parents. We cut to Data's family. His father, much like Data, is apparently a clumsy inventor. He opens his jacket and a camera springs from a contraption on his waist. As he goes to snap a picture, the camera opens up, causing the reel of film to spill out. Everyone laughs, and Data calls his father over. He tells him that it's okay, and that you cannot hug a photograph. And thus ends minute 102 of the Goonies. All right, so we have a pretty cool cameo right here at the opening of this scene, and it is whenever the Goonies are making their way up the beach, and two police officers on four-wheelers come riding up on the sand, and one of them is Richard Donner, the director.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that you may notice of on the last episode, Mark. But what do you think of like directors' cameos in movies? This one is just kind of strange. It's not like an Alfred Hitchcock thing where it's like, oh look, there he is. This is like this could have been anybody.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think as a film professional myself, like my rule of thumb is if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all.
Okay,
but I will go ahead and say that Richard Donner is a guy making fun movies, so it's a different thing if you're like Stanley Kubrick. You know, you don't want to take people out of it. But Stanley Kubrick was also a giant, sort of mysterious media figure. People, at least he is now, like people know his face.
Yeah.
But Richard Donner was sort of behind the scenes, and you didn't really know. No one knew that was Richard Donner, so
yeah,
it was okay.
Yeah, and
that's right. That's why it's fun.
Yeah,
right. It's not like M. Night Shyamalan like sticking himself in his movies.
Yeah.
Respect to him for the great movies that he's made. But it's sometimes when you know the director, when the director is really making an effort to be known and for their face to be known, just my personal opinion, it takes you away from the film. It takes you out of it.
I agree, because
really
you're not in the story anymore. You're in the real life of the director.
Yeah.
If the director's famous and you know that person's face. I agree with that.
But I definitely think here in The Goonies, this is one of those occasions, like you said, where it's a fun movie, it's a fun little thing, and for his friends to have spotted it, great, and then whatever else.
Yeah, and he has a smaller cameo in his Superman movie.
Who was he in that?
Well, there was one point, and I'm not sure it made it into the final cut of the movie, but it's in the deleted scenes at least. It's when Clark Kent is walking along the street, and there's a shop window full of television sets, and they're playing the news, and they're talking about Superman this, Superman that, and everyone's gathered around the TV sets, and Clark joins the crowd, and Richard Donner's right next to him in the crowd. I think he says something to Clark, but
that's in the movie. That's in the movie.
Okay.
I'm 99% sure.
Did you know that was him?
No, I didn't know that was him, but I know that scene. I know exactly the scene that you're talking about. I know. Awesome. I was saying I know Superman and Superman 2 very well.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what you're talking about. And I do remember somebody saying something to him. So I don't remember what that person looked like, but unless they cut Donner's part out and had someone else do it, then it's in there.
Okay, cool.
How about that?
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Awesome.
Pretty cool. So we also get to meet the families of the Goonies here. Now, we've already met the Walshes. We've already seen Mouth's dad, but we're also going to get to see Andy's family, Data's family, and Chunk's family. Do we get to see anybody come for Steph, or is Steph just...
Yeah, no. That's next minute. Next minute,
you're
going to see Steph's family come.
Yeah. So, okay. Andy's family is just sort of a generic family, no big deal, whatever. Mouth, same thing. But we get kind of a joke whenever Chunk's family show up, because they're all also overweight. They show up with pizza, like, hey, check it out. And then
how much did Domino's pay for that paid product placement? That's what I want to know.
Them and Pepsi all over this movie. But and then Data's family shows up, and his dad is also an inventor. So, when the one constant thing whenever we have guests on, we ask them what the Goonies means to them, and everybody says the same thing. It sort of inspired their childhood, and the sense of adventure that they had as children just sort of stemmed from the influence the Goonies had on them. It sounds like it kind of goes a little bit deeper for you.
Yes, I mean there were kids, and I had experiences, post seeing Goonies, my junior high school, years, when, I would be confronted with Troy out in the world, and he was an asshole to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, where are my Goonies, I'm not sure that completely articulates my entire life story, but it's definitely... That's what stories function to do, is to set up these archetypes in your head when you're young to sort of make sense of where you find yourself. And the people who make films know that. And Dick Donner knew that, and Steve Spielberg knew that. I mean, E.T., E.T.'s Elliot is in a divorced family. They know kids are going through that.
Now, one thing I did notice is that we have all of the families that showed up. You have the quote-unquote old-style traditional family. There's not a single parent, single mom. There's not a single dad. It's all married. Which of course you saw more of that back then than now. Because would y'all agree that unfortunately things that were not the norm were sometimes looked down upon back then? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you want to put that in there, but it's true.
I think for this particular movie, it was just a shorthand. Like they didn't have time to get into that's a good They don't have time to develop that Right.
that type of situation.
If one parent showed up for Chunk, the audience would be like, well, where's the other parent?
And
there's no time for that.
And agreed, back in, you had to explain more of those things back in the 80s in movies like that, as opposed to now, you wouldn't even necessarily have to explain it.
That's true. That's true. Back then, it would have been a question in the audience's mind. Now
it's just the way it is. It's like, I'm not being derogatory towards it, but that's just the way it was back then.
And it's funny that you guys mention Steven Spielberg just kind of having elements like that, the family element, the childlike element in his films. I don't think anybody gets children. A filmmaker gets the little, like a child's mentality, quite like Steven Spielberg. Mm-hmm. And E.T. is a perfect example of that. And The Goonies is a perfect example.
Well, I mentioned in one of the first few minutes how, and this goes along to what we're saying, it's an empowering movie for kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the gigantic problems are solved by the kids.
Yeah. And, speaking of having both parents show up at the beach and everything like that at the end, there's a constant theme throughout most of Steven Spielberg's films, and it's divorce parents. So he definitely has that, I don't want to call it an appreciation, but that understanding, and something that he addresses and is sensitive towards in a lot of his movies.
Right. It's one thing as a storyteller to set your main character up with a lot of problems. And, I say the word problem, and, people are like, wait a minute, divorced family is not a problem. But what I mean is, like, the kid is going to have
challenges. Challenges.
A kid who goes through a divorce has to process that divorce in his mind. A kid who doesn't go through that divorce does not have to process a divorce, and sort of kind of more innocent in a way than Elliot, who does have to process his parents getting divorced.
Yes, absolutely. Perfect examples. So, let's see. What are my notes?
Another point, just to piggyback on the idea of like these kids solving these big problems that the adults don't have the capacity to do, because they can't think, they can't open their minds to the possibility that this treasure map could solve their problems. No adult would say, "Yeah, let's go on a treasure hunt." It brings to mind Stranger Things. I don't think there would be a Stranger Things if there wasn't a Goonies.
Right, which is something that I definitely want to get into on one of the upcoming minutes that we're going to have you on for this week.
Gotcha.
Because I know that you're a huge fan of that show. And
I love it. I love it too, man.
Definitely. It's something that we haven't really addressed on Goonies Minute so far, which is, clearly the Goonies, it's influenced so much in TV and in film, but probably nothing more so than Stranger Things, which is something that I've kind of wanted to wait to really delve into until here towards the end of the series.
Okay, yeah.
But on one of the
we really have to wait till like October and November for that,
right?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It's
ridiculous. Because I think me and my girlfriend watched it in 2 days.
Oh really?
Man,
yeah. So good.
It was
when I say end of the series, I mean the end of Goonies.
I know what you mean.
Okay. Well,
edit.
Yeah, right. So, Andy,
forget I said anything.
No. We'll preview it.
Oh yeah, trust me. There's all kind.
No, that's what's great about it not being live.
Yeah, because you should hear some of what Chris has to say.
Yeah, look, he's got an outtake. He's got an outtake clip of mine that would get me if this was on. If the FCC controlled this, I would have been fined as much as Howard Stern back in the 90s.
Blackmail material, man.
Oh yeah.
Okay, ahead, you mentioned something about Andy. I don't know how you want to edit this in, but do you notice how she said, "Can I take piano lessons?" And it's like, I don't know if you would want to take piano lessons after that, if that would have traumatized her, or because she was successful with it, it makes her want to get back into the piano again.
My reading of that, it was that, just in case this happens again, I want to be better.
Yeah, just in case this happens again, right?
That happens again. Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's the Goonies, too. There'll be a bigger and better piano.
Right.
That's another topic of discussion.
Yes, we got to get into that.
Yeah. Mark, here's something interesting that an idea we developed a little while back. And whenever you were saying that the only people who could have solved this mission were children, it was going to take a child's zeal almost to get them through that no adult could do. And we find Mikey, when he's sort of confronting and having a one-on-one dialogue with One-Eyed Willie's skeleton, he's saying, you're seeing a kind of a sick individual right there, someone with kind of
when he brings the arrogant part
when
about
he brings
it,
the arrogant
I
part,
won, I beat you, Willie.
beat you, and just the way he's addressing him is like kind of like just like a sociopath or something. Yeah, and I don't even know why I'm bringing this up. I guess because I find it interesting. But
well, we mentioned that there's only two people that respected and One-Eyed Willie.
That's right.
And that was Ma Fratelli, which is the only time she shows a human side.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Willie. Thank you. And then we have that, and then we have with Mikey. So that's kind of interesting there.
Oh, I would challenge that a bit. I would say that Ma Fratelli is being facetious, and
You think?
yeah, she's like, "Thank you, Mr. Willie. Thank you for the money I'm stealing from you."
Yeah,
and then Mikey. So that the film's position is that Mikey's the only one who really respects him by making sure people don't take that.
Yeah, and Mikey does. Whenever he is there having that dialogue, he definitely comes around.
But he also does show him the respect, saying
Yeah.
that, no, that's Willie's. Leave that for Willie.
Yeah, you were the first Goonie. But you know, it's like even in the speech, he's like, "You're the first Goonie. You know, I beat you. I got through your maze. You know, I did it." And
and a few minutes back, whenever we went over that, we, just beat it to death.
Oh, okay.
But
So I won't do that again.
Oh, no. That's
No, that's a good point.
I'm
We
done with it.
I would like to
saying.
hear that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That sounded like I was saying, we already went there.
No.
It's okay, Brady. Look,
I like to hear
sometimes,
that.
You know, my leash needs to be pulled, man.
Let me tell you what, Brady and I will be
No.
on one track with something, then we'll bring a guest on, and it's like, man, it's neat to have somebody else look at something and bring an idea up that we never really thought of.
Yeah.
We love that.
No, that's why I brought it up, is because I wanted to get your take on that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's been the most interesting thing for Goonies Minute so far with me, I think, is trying to figure out Mikey. And why I find him so interesting.
How do you interpret Mikey? And I think, I think everyone's interpretation of any art is, at least 50% what's in their own head. And I think that just means you're a sociopath, Brady. I'm kidding.
I've been called borderline sociopath by some people.
So maybe both you guys, are a little skewed on that. But I think, so my take on Mikey's conversation with One-Eyed Willie there is that Mikey is so excited to have taken up the challenge of the treasure map and then successfully made it to the end, that he's showing One-Eyed Willie both, I respect you and I'm worthy of you. I'm worthy of this treasure. I beat you. I beat your challenges. And I'm saying that you were the first Goonie. So I'm like you, Never mind the fact that he's talking to a corpse.
Of course, he's like him, except for the fact that he didn't murder all of his men.
Yeah.
Of course, that's what, if Mikey would have got the treasure, that's what really would have happened.
That's Goonies.
He would have just killed everybody.
Mikey just takes everybody
Kills
out.
everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Good deal. All right, guys. Well, if no one has anything else for Minute 102, we will go ahead and come back here tomorrow for Minute number 103. So, Mark, you good? You got anything else for this minute?
I'm good, thank you.
All right.
I'm
well, until tomorrow, everybody, this is Brady.
And this is Chris.
And we're here to remind you that Goonies
Never say die.
Goonies Minute is a fan-supported podcast. If you like the show, then leave us a review on iTunes. You can find us at GooniesMinute.com, Facebook.com/GooniesMinute, Twitter.com/GooniesMinute, and at Instagram @GooniesMinute. You can contact us at GooniesMinute@gmail.com. You've been listening to a Pele Media podcast. For premium content and exclusive podcasts, visit us at Patreon.com/Pele Media. Check us out on Facebook at Facebook.com/Pele Media and follow us on Twitter at Twitter.com/Pele Media.